inform you about the basics of lockpicking. So we're going to run through as quickly as we can the basics of combination locks, pin tumbler locks, and a couple high security locks that we brought to show you guys.
And if we have time, we'll go over how to get around not having to pick anything. So,
since it is only 1 hour, we are probably going to run over time. We will be hanging out in the hallway with all of this stuff so that you guys can come out. We have picks if you're interested in picking up the sport. And so...
We are rolling anytime.
All right.
cool. Thank you.
This is Locks 101. You are here to learn about locks today. My name is Chris Suter, and this is
I'm
Jimmy
Jimmy
Chan.
Chan. I'm also known as Lamangelo, spelled lemon jello. Don't ask me how it came about.
He's the DEFCON 12 lockpicking champion.
It means shit. So,
Anyhow, you guys enjoying Nauticon today? Yeah! You guys were much more enthusiastic last time. Come on.
we've done.
All right. Good enough.
I owe that guy a beer.
Yeah, I'm buying you beer later on. All right, our disclaimer for you today is we are teaching you a skill, a trade, a hobby. We are not teaching you how to break into things, to steal things. You are not to use this information for evil means in any way possible because I don't want you to do that. You're going to get arrested, you're going to get thrown in jail, and you're going to have a girlfriend named Bubba.
Unless you want to get on the roof of this hotel.
Yeah, someone mentioned something about the roof. I believe we needed a legitimate reason to be on the roof and couldn't be it, so that would be okay with me. This is not a lecture. We're intending for this to be a workshop, so we're here to have fun. Ask me with questions if you want, but we're just going to run through 4 different kinds of locks for you today. We're going to be doing pin tumbler locks, combination locks, and 2 high security Medico and the multi-lock for you today. We're going to run through this as quickly as possible so we can actually demonstrate for you and so you guys can come together and maybe start playing with it. We brought a bunch of padlocks and door locks here that you would see in common practice. So let's get this party started, shall we? First of all, we're going to start with combination locks. Combination locks are, well, you've seen them everywhere. They're on lockers. They're securing most of your private property. Lots of people like to use them because it's easy to remember a 3-digit code that's given to you.
So how many of you guys know how to crack one of these things?
Has anyone heard about how to do this? About 5, 10.
So there's a handful of you. How many of you
5
know
people.
nothing about combination locks and how they work? All right, so there's a good number of you who are unwilling to raise your hand.
A lot
for
of you
either
are
one.
apathetic. So if you take off the back of a combination lock, which I could not bring for you today, I apologize, so I got you pictures. What you'll see is a mechanism kind of like this. What happens is you have the shackle go down into the lock and you have a pin that goes into a cutout on the lock that keeps it from popping up. These discs right here have a notch rotate in them that when they are rotated into the proper position, this little bump is allowed to recess into that cutout on 3 different cylinders, which is then allowing this shackle to or this pin to pop back and your shackle to open up. Now, if we take this apart further, you'll see exactly a little bit closer how this is possible. There are various pins around the edges on both sides of the combination lock. This is what corresponds to when you have to twirl the lock around 3 times. It's to get these pins to catch on all 3 cylinders. These notches need to line up perfectly at the exact location right here for it to open up. If you take these off further, what you're going to see is this. There's a spring that keeps tension on the bottom disc that's going to keep it from rotating when you go back the other direction to pass 0 and then do the second number. That's what the spring is for. These 2 pieces right here are actually attached to the disc and are in charge of rotating each disc. So as you can see from this picture, you're going to notice the pins sticking up in somewhat kind of random fashion. Those are actually there to correspond to the number on the top of the lock. You can, by looking at this, determine the number on the lock.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do a little demonstration. This is actually a master lock a buddy of mine gave to me a while ago because he had lost the combination long ago, and he wanted me to crack it. So if you can open up like a spreadsheet or something.
Hang on one sec. It seems like a safe enough solution, right? You have 40 numbers on your lock, right? 3 numbers, that's 59,000 some possible combinations. That's pretty safe, I would say. Well, it turns out not. So we need a spreadsheet of some sort. What do you need?
I don't know, anything.
All right, Notepad it is.
Notepad works. All right. So the one thing is about this design is that it has a fundamental flaw, and that's that it gives away its combination. Namely, if anyone who's ever used one of these, you've probably noticed that when you pull on the shackle, it gets kind of hard to move the dial in certain places, right? It gets stuck for some reason. Well, the reason is that, well, Master Lock realizes that this fundamental flaw in the thing gives away the combination. So they also put in a number of little dummy spots so that it's a little less obvious to you that, hey, my combination is kind of obvious thanks to those little spots. So let me show you. If you pull on the top of a Master Lock and you twist it, you'll notice that it gets stuck in a number of, actually 12 spots. Now, 7 of those spots actually stick between two numbers. So where you see the little notches on the lock itself, you'll see that it gets stuck between them, not actually on the number. However, 5 of those spots, it gets stuck on the number itself. It gets between, here in this case, 4.5 and 5.5. So you go through the lock and you find the 5 that stick on the number. And you'll notice something about those 5 numbers. 4 of them all share the same ones digit. For instance, on this lock, 5, 15, 25, and 35 all stick on the number. However, 32 all does the same thing. However, it doesn't share the same ones digit. And there we have the last digit in the combination. So we know that the last digit is 32. And what is this? How is this useful for us? Well, we've just reduced the key space incredibly. Why? Because the way the mechanism works is, as it turns out, the first number in the combination has the same mod 4 as the last number in the combination. Do you guys know? Is everyone familiar with what the mod operator is? Okay, good. So we know that the first number has the same mod 4. So 32 mod 4 is 0, right? All right. So
It evenly divides by 4.
there you go. So go ahead and write out what our possible numbers are for the first number in the combination. We have 0, we have 4, we have 8, and you just keep adding 4 to it until we've reached the maximum number of 39. So 12, keep going, 16. I won't bore you with it, ... right? The second number in the combination has the same mod 4 plus or minus 2. For instance, in this case, because our mod was 0, we add 2 to it, so we know that the second number in the combination is mod 2. Or equal to 2, right? So that lowers our key space even further. So we have 32 mod 4 equal, or no, x mod 4. I got a monkey typing on this. All right, so we reduce the key space basically down to a few numbers: 2, 6, 10. Keep adding 4. There you go, 14, ... right? Well, what you do is you just keep trying these combinations. There's a total of 100 combinations. I know that sounds like a lot, but compared to the 59,000 some possible combinations you could be trying out, well, we've reduced it so significantly. You can do this in your spare time, or you can do it when no one's watching. Not that you should, but hey, come on. So coincidentally, when I tried this lock, what do you think the first combination was that I tried? 0, 2, 32. Guess what the combination on this lock is? 0, 2, 32.
0, 2, 32. It's the first one. We were amazed. It's never happened. It's always been the last one for me.
Crap. So
Yeah,
that's how your basic combination lock works, and this is why you should probably not fool around with them, just because they're a waste of your time.
So we took the key space from 60,000 possible combinations down to under 100 just by playing with it for a few minutes.
And that 100 assumes that you have to go through all of them, and usually you'll probably go about half through, and you're fine.
Don't waste your money on these folks.
Seriously.
All right.
And that's also assuming you don't shim the lock, so I'll get into that later, probably. All right.
Anyhow, the next thing we're going to talk about is pin tumbler locks for you. These are the most common locks you're going to see anywhere. These are the simple key locks. You put a key in them, they open. That's all you know, that's all you care about.
Originally patented by the Yale Corporation.
All right, so this is if you're looking straight on at the keyhole of the lock, this is what you'll see. And this part right here is kind of covered from you. You'll see the keyhole where you put in the key right here, but you don't see this up here. What we have is a key pin where the key actually touches the pin, and it's wedged at the bottom so that the ridges of the key will push it up and it'll fall into place. Above it, we have something called the driver pin. What the driver pin is responsible for doing is getting in the way of the tumbler from turning. All right, when you're trying to turn the lock and it won't open, that's because these pins are crossing the shear line right here, and it's not going to go anywhere. We have a spring up at the top that's responsible for pushing that down, so you can't just turn it over and open it up. That'd be a little trivial. So they put in a spring with a reasonable amount of tension on it that works.
Anyone who has ever put the wrong key inside of a lock knows one little fundamental flaw, and it's the reason why lockpicking works in the first place, is that when you put that key inside the lock, you'll notice that the tumbler actually turns just a little bit. Not enough to open, obviously, but it just turns a little bit. And the fact that it does that is the reason that this whole concept works out. So let's assume that we have this one-pin lock, right? If you wanted to open this, how would you manage to turn this portion? Well, you'd have to push this up so that this little line here matches up right there so that the rest of the mechanism can turn with this sucker still stuck inside of it. However, if you pushed it too far up, this thing would get stuck here and it would jam the lock. This is the reason why the wrong key for the wrong lock will oftentimes not work, is because the wrong key pushes it up too high or not high enough. So you have to have that perfect balance of getting it to go up. So how does this apply to lockpicking?
In your normal lock, you're not going to just have one pin. You could just put a little toothpick, screwdriver, anything in there and just push up on it until it opens. Normal locks have anywhere between 4 and 6, maybe even more pins in them. 6 pins are reasonably complicated and harder to get into.
Depending on who makes them.
Yes, but you'll notice that what happens with this binding mechanism is that all you have to do is wait until the pin pops up over the top of the shear line and it clicks over, and then you're done. I mean, it's pretty trivial. It's a matter of rotational physics. Well, then the lock companies decided to come up with a little technique called driver pin, or mushroom pins, spool pins, and serrated driver pins.
The idea is that if you're not entirely accurate about pushing the entire pin up, these pins get caught a lot easier than a cylindrical pin. So you have this variety, you have the spool pin variety, you have the serrated variety, serrated probably being the hardest one. Mushroom is something used by a company named Medico. I don't know if all of them use it, but we'll show that to you later. But this is actually one way that you can get stopped in lockpicking, especially with a harder lock. This is why you also want to buy a good lock, is because cheaper companies won't use little bits of technology like this. They'll go ahead and put whatever the hell they can inside the lock, and you, the consumer, go and see, hey, look, there's a $10 lock versus the $40 lock. I'm going to buy the $10 lock because who knows about lockpicking other than anyone who's sitting in this room now. So go ahead and go forward on this sucker. Never mind, I got it.
Okay, in my hand I hold a nice armored master lock in this hand, and over in this hand an Ace Hardware lock. Which one of you, by a show of hands, thinks that the armored lock in this hand is much more secure than this one?
Not a trick question. Just be honest.
Come on, it's armored.
Right. Who takes the master lock?
About 10 people?
All right.
10 people take the master lock?
And who
The
takes
cheap little Ace Hardware lock right here?
All right. So far fewer of you. Well, actually, the people that picked the Ace Hardware lock, I was lying. It was a trick question. That is the better lock.
Cheaper than this, and
cheaper and better.
Takes him nothing. Takes me about 10 minutes to get into this thing.
Don't be
Takes
fooled
me
by
nothing
names.
to get into this.
The master lock uses, and actually just about every master lock you'll encounter uses the regular cylindrical drive pin. That Ace Hardware lock there actually uses a spool pin, which makes it significantly harder, though. I mean, once you get used to it, it's no big deal. But for the average person learning lockpicking, you don't want to start learning on something like that, because you'll just start getting confused about why things aren't working right.
So, you don't have a key for your lock. Now what? Fortunately, God came up with these ideas.
Your lock.
These are lock picks. They have 2 components to them, and one is called the tension wrench, because we rely on the process of binding that we explained earlier in order to pick up the driver pin, have it bind up against the shear line until we get all 4, 6, 5 pins picked properly so that the cylinder can rotate. They come in different thicknesses, different shapes, different sizes. There's some that'll just have a weight on them so that you don't have to do anything. There's some that are spring-loaded. There's all sorts of different kinds of tension wrenches that will allow you to put different tensions on your cylinder.
But
This
to be
is the mo-
absolutely honest, the only ones that you'll ever really use are that one, the finger, and the half diamond. But to be honest, I've started to shy away from it